Who am I interviewing today? A man who has been instrumental in the community of targeted individuals. His name is Mr. Magnus Olsson. And today we have some very important information to discuss. Today we're going to be discussing the first World Against Electronic Torture, which will be held on July 31st. And this special day was created by Cynthia Orsi and Marcela Rebon in Argentina. And so activities are being organized around the world by millions of victims of electronic torture to inform the public that July 31st is World Day Against Electronic Torture. For the first time ever, Professor Nils Melzer, UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, will present to the 75th UN General Assembly session in October his report on cyber torture, which are forms of computerized remote electronic torture against illegally targeted individuals worldwide. So I want to say thank you very much, Magnus, for this interview, and it's so nice to see you.
Thank you for having me, Ella. So I will start with saying that it is about time we get recognition of a day that is of great importance, because electronic warfare is the most growing aspect if you look at the military at the moment, and electronic can also be used against civilians. And as this has happened in a greater and bigger scale, I have watched this now for 20 years, and I've seen it skyrocketing lately. And this kind of torture that is committed for a reason, of course. And what is the reason here? Well, the motive is power and money as the driving force for all kind of criminal activity. The power, the factor, and the money is power, as we all know. This have now led to that this torture. And that's why I want to emphasize on torture, because why are they committing brutality and violence, violent crimes from distance upon the human body and mind and soul as well? Well, this torture committed, and I must say it is very brutal, violent crime. And I mean, what we see here is that this is pure human trafficking, which is one of the worst crimes ever committed. It's actually slavery. Electronic slavery we're speaking about as a crime, to actually steal the data. The data has a greater and bigger value during torture. Torture that is by the military called incapacitation weaponry. And this is tried upon civilians. Incapacitation weaponry for the military is tried on civilians worldwide.
Well, we are definitely in times where technology is taking over and there's no privacy, not even in your mind. And this is a very frightening idea to many, many people. But people have to understand that it's 2020. And this type of study has been going on since World War II by the Germans. So people have to understand, we're pushing 80, 90 years now. And so this technology has advanced in a way that is very hard to understand. It has grown exponentially since that time. And when you think back from World War II until now, Just think of how far technology has advanced. And so that should give you some understanding of how far ahead technology has come in this particular field.
Yes, and to add to that is that commonly known 40 years ahead the military is. So it's pretty frightening to just think a little bit about this kind, the usage of such a weaponry that it is now being used upon civilians. And I want to say one thing when it comes to civilians that can't defend their life at all, at any point. And that is the saddest story. And this has been committed against young people too, and very young people too, and women who is pregnant, and so on. So the factor of hunting this data in all situations, during torture, in bad situation, in good situation, in all kinds of situations, incapacitation weaponry is stimuli. Transcranial stimuli is incapacitation weaponry. You can't live and perform a life during with this stimuli, and that's the meaning and the point of it also. Okay, so let me speak about cyber torture, the name of this by the United Nations. Why the name? I saw and heard a lot of reactions in the beginning. Of course, it's a lot of wills, but the explanation that is pretty clear is that what is system? A great system called that uses satellites and ground-based stations, and in between cognitive radio that uses both of them. That's called a cyber physiological system. And that's why the name cyber torture, because it can use ground stationary equipment and networks. It can use satellites, and the cognitive radio is a system that is adopting all of this. The biometric sensors that actually is software, because this is virtual sensors. And this sounds a little bit spacey, maybe science fiction, but this is science fact. And you can just believe and understand what kind of things in the near future we will see coming on in this field of both weaponry. But the point is also this technology could really help people. It could make humanity a favor in the medical sector. It's endless, I would point that. And so what I wanted to say about these biometric sensors that are actually software, virtual sensors, is that Ericsson in Sweden, I am from Sweden, you as well, your family, Ella. So the point here is that the Royal Academy of Science and the University of Royal University of Science and so on is co-working with Ericsson. We were developing in Sweden 5G, but this was 20 years ago, even more. But the point is now that the cognitive radio is developed also from Sweden. It can and do attach to biological life. biological life, even flowers, even animals, and so on. So this is an endless technology that is just exploding in front of our eyes, and we can see development happening right now on civilians, and this theft of biodata is the worst crime against humanity we have ever seen. This is worse than the world wars. I'm not joking here. This is a fact. The Second World War was 7 years, yes? And this development has been going on now for 50 years. How many lives have we seen ended by this technology? That question, we will shed light on that question, that's for sure.
And I think finally, at this day and age, or at this time, I should say, we're getting acknowledgement. And for so long, people had a hard time understanding and accepting that these crimes would occur. And now there's really no denying it. And we had U.S. embassy workers in Cuba. They suffered similar attacks. And at first, even that was not accepted. But finally, what happened is there was brilliant doctors and universities who were able to diagnose these victims, and there was evidence obtained. So people can no longer deny that these crimes are occurring. And the other thing is, ultimately, what we're looking for is public acknowledgement as a whole, or at least a high percentage, and we need to put pressure on legislators in all the various countries in order for this to happen. And, you know, even if you're not a targeted person, do you have children? Would you want your children growing up in a world like this? It is up to us as individuals to stop this before it's too late. And it's really already out of hand. And again, I can't reiterate this enough. We have to stop this now, because if we don't, this is going to take over everyone. This is going to get out of control. And as Magnus alluded to, or actually stated, that this technology can be used in wonderful ways. But the problem is, we all know in the world there is good and there is bad, and people will take this technology for their own use. So we have to control that to some extent. And with legislation, we can do that. And this technology comes in many forms and various formats. And to be a victim of this is a horrific thing. And I don't want you, the listeners, to become a victim. I don't want your children, your family. I don't want this to go on anymore. And you should feel the same way.
But what I would like to say more is that when I went to Geneva to meet the special rapporteur, Professor Nils Meltzer, it was a long procedure, and Liliana De Luca that worked actually 25 years for the United Nations in New York as a high officer. So she helped us and arranged, and I was in the Human Rights Council with one lawyer in the coalition, which is Henning Witte from Germany, living in Sweden. And we were the first people to talk with Nils Meltzer directly after he announced cyber torture. What it was, what it is, and what they're gonna do. They're gonna start an investigation, he told me. And then I was there mostly to inform and see correctly that he knows what this is all about. And I went back from Geneva with a big smile, because he knows for sure what is happening. So don't worry about that side. He knows, and he is going to propose new laws to all the members of the United Nations. Usually these are adopted pretty fast. So what we will have in the near future, if this runs right in October, is new law proposals against cyber torture as it is by the book. And that means that these people will get tracked and hunted down and jailed. And that's what we want. Yes, the World Day of against electronic torture or electronic slavery, I would say, because that's what this will lead to in the big picture. So yes, this is a very, very important day.
And I believe in humanity. I believe we can make a change. And I just want to say thank you to everybody listening, and we hope you participate. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you, Magnus.
And thank you, Ella. Thank you very much.